The decision to leave my 9 to 5 job is a huge one, and I need to make sure that I have all my ducks in a row before I do that. So I've got 4 steps that I need to have in place before I can leave my 9 to 5 job. My current estimated date for leaving that 9 to 5 would be by the end of 2020, my stretch goal. And over the next couple of years, this is what I'm going to be doing to make sure that I can leave by that date or maybe even earlier if possible. Hi, my name is Karen. This is SoloGenXMom. I'm raising my teenage daughter on one income while I pay off $95,418 in consumer debt. I'm building income that I own so that I can leave my 9 to 5 and work for myself. Own your money, own your time, own your life is my motto and what I'm focusing on as I continue through this process, this journey. So, the 4 steps I'm taking, the first one is to destroy the consumer debt I have. In August of 5, I sat down and it was actually August 12th. I just came across that date in my diary and it was an eye opening day to say the least. I sat down and figured out all the debt I owed, $95,418 in consumer debt. And I decided at that moment I needed to do everything I can to get it to zero. Bankruptcy wasn't an option for me. Um, I'm not judging, it could be an option for somebody else, but I have a 9 to 5 job that is a decent one and pays a decent salary. I also didn't want to destroy my credit because I have a goal to buy a home in the next couple of years after I move across the country next summer. Destroying this debt would mean making some sacrifices and putting everything I possibly can towards that debt in order to get it to zero before I apply for a mortgage. Currently, my debt free date is September of 2029, but I'd love for that date to actually be December 2028 at the latest, if I can. That's my stretch goal. So currently, I have paid off $18,200 in the past year of that debt. I started out at 95,418. I'm currently at 77,218, which is a difference of $18,200. So I feel really good about that. I know I have a long ways to go, but I'm consistently working on my step number one to destroy the debt, and we'll keep on working on that so I can achieve my goals. So the second step I'm taking is to build income that I own. And by that, I mean I'm building an online business and I've chosen to go the digital product route for that. And the reason for that is because I created spreadsheets for my own use that I've been using as I've paid off this debt. I've decided that these are the products that I'm going to sell, at least initially, in order to build my own income. I'm going to keep working my 9 to 5 while I build this income because obviously it's going to start out slowly and I won't have a full time income to start with. The other thing is that the income I make from my digital business, I can put towards my consumer debt so that I can reach my debt free date as of my stretch date of December of 2028. So my 9 to 5 job, as I said, it's a decent paying job and I'm using it essentially to fund my life, to pay off the debt, to pay the regular month to month bills, and to give me the money to put towards my debt. I have recently gone to the compressed work week. So I work from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, Tuesday to Friday, so that I can take Mondays off. And while those are really long days, and when you throw in the commute, it's sometimes 12-hour days I'm working, which is quite exhausting, but it's worth it because it gives me Mondays off so that I can dedicate my full weekend to building my business. It's a trade-off that I've chosen to make. I know it's not going to be forever, but for now, that's what I'm doing. So I'm using my job to fund my life. Also, my job is going to do another purpose. While it's helping me fund my regular day-to-day life and paying off my debt, it's also going to be what helps me buy a home. Well, it'd probably be a townhouse or a condo. I'm moving across country next summer in July of 2027. And my goal before I leave my 9 to 5 is to qualify for a mortgage. Now, when you're self-employed in Canada anyway, and I have heard it's similar in the States, you need to have 2 years of self-employment income before you'll even be considered for a mortgage. To make things easier for me, I'm going to make sure that I qualify for that mortgage before I leave my 9 to 5 because a lender will take my employment income far more easily than self-employment income. So that's another reason to stay with my 9 to 5 until at least December of 2028, hopefully by the end of December 2028. The fourth step I'm taking before I leave my 9 to 5 is to do with my business income, of course, but also my personal costs. So I'm a big believer in knowing my numbers, which is why I sat down a year ago after not dealing with it for a while. But I sat down a year ago and figured out the debt that I owed. I needed to know my numbers in order to create a plan to attack that debt. So before I leave my 9 to 5, I'll need to have very specific business income levels or, something that I can realistically count on. I do understand that my business income will be variable, but I need to have some sort of base consistency of income so that I know that it will cover my business costs, the money I need to set aside for taxes, and my living costs. As I pay down debt, these numbers will become more and more clear. And of course, moving to the other side of the country in a year will potentially change those numbers. But I need to be very, very clear on knowing my numbers before I leave my 9 to 5. I don't want to have to go back to a 9 to 5 after I leave, partly because I'm almost 57 and getting close to retirement, and because I really want to finally build my own income, build my business that I've wanted to do for years and not have to rely on a 9 to 5 job. The benefit of building this income is that it will also fund my retirement because I'm behind on retirement, but that's a whole other video. So, and I will definitely share that. But in the meantime, I did want to quickly get on here and share what I'm doing in preparation to leave my 9 to 5. Yes, it's, a couple years out still, but I'm a planner. I need to be very organized in where I am financially before I do that. Something that you might find interesting is when I sat down in August of 2025 to figure out all my debt, one of the things I did was I added all my debt together and I said, okay, I owe $95,418. If I pay X amount a month, which would be at minimum the minimum payments, how long would it take me to be debt free or to get that consumer debt down to zero? Currently, my debt free date is September of 2029. But as I said, I'm trying to get that sooner. But I have put together a debt-free date tool, and it's in the description box below. If you want to click on that, you can enter in all your debt and it will show you what your debt-free date will be. You can plan when you know the numbers. And in that tool, there's also a simple monthly budget that you can use. The budget I use now is more complex. But when I started out very basic, and I used this simple calculator to make sure that I kept track of my money and was able to put what I have towards debt while still covering all my monthly expenses. So I'd love if you clicked on that link in the description below. And if you want to subscribe as I continue on my journey to paying off this debt and building my business, please subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below too. I make a big effort to make sure that I answer as many comments as I can. I'll see you in the next video.